Thank you for joining us today. This is Worth the Admission podcast. My name is B. Frank,
And I'm Travis.
and here we talk about many things movies, TV, and the ever changing pop culture.
Yes, and we got a lot to talk about this week. I mean, obviously the big thing is Oscars. The Oscar noms happened this week, and we're going to go over a lot of the major categories. But I think it's going to be a full episode.
I'm excited to talk about them. I've seen some of them, I haven't seen others, so we'll see how well we do.
Well, we still got a month out. We're still. I think it's February 24th for the Oscars.
Something like that.
It's
End
in
of February.
yeah, it's late, so we got plenty of time. But let's jump into this. Let's see, what have you been watching this week?
I put on Sex Education on Netflix the other day.
I'm only like 4 episodes in. I have started it.
I watched the first 2 episodes at home and then watched the last 6 episodes at work while I was running solo on shift.
You are working hard at you're working hard at your job if you can finish a Netflix season in a day.
When I first started it, I started it a couple of days earlier, and it started off with, a sex scene, full breasts and all. And I was like, well, I need to find a time to watch this that isn't weird. And once I popped on the
Yes.
episode again, it was only a couple minutes in, and then it moved into the actual show.
Yes, because watching a sex scene while at work is that's the perfect thing for you to do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you picked a show called Sex Education to watch
In all
at work.
fairness, I only watched it because Asa Butterfield was in it.
You have a man crush on him.
Hey, I've watched just about everything he's been in, and have not been disappointed by him yet. How about you? What have you been watching?
Let's see. I watched the same crummy TV show, reality TV during the week with the wife. I watched Solo on Netflix as well too. I've been finally I wanted to watch it again. I wanted to give it a fair shake, and I honestly really enjoyed it the second time watching it. I don't know what it was. I just don't know if I actually got a chance to sit down, but I actually really enjoyed that story.
I thought it felt more like a Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi did. I think it was very underappreciated because there were a lot of people kind of on strike from the last Star Wars and weren't really ready to hop on the train again. I think it stacks up against the others.
Yeah, I think that first 20 minutes was a bit hard. I mean, you can really tell where the movie changes around that 20 to 30 minute mark. I mean, kind of when he finally meets Chewbacca for the first time. To me, that's when the movie really kicked into gear, and I enjoyed the rest of that movie from there. And walking away the second time, I was quite delighted, more than I thought I was going to be. But I'd say, other than Han, I mean, just a lot of stuff on TV. I'm 2 weeks behind on The Flash, but I'm trying to save a few of those to catch up. And I know Arrow came back this week as well too, so I'm trying to save those for the weekend to give little something to watch. Other than that, not too much.
Season 4 of The Magicians started, and I, as well as my roommate, are really excited because last season left off on a pretty big cliffhanger, and 3 days before season 4 even premiered, season 5 was renewed. So we've got at least 2 full seasons of The Magicians, which I think is definitely one of sci-fi's best TV shows right now.
See, and I have a show that got renewed too. You know me, I'm a sucker for animation, and that's one of the things. That's why I love Netflix, because they do have a lot of animation on there, pretty decent. But F is for Family, the Bill Burr comedy from basically a take on the 1970s from his real life, that got renewed for season 4. Which, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it too much for you, but it is a really funny show. If you're not someone who likes quite the crude humor of a Family Guy, or American Dad, or things like that are normally on, repeat, or you can find fairly often, you want something fresh. It's got a good story, so I definitely would say check out F is for Family. But yeah, I mean, there's too much stuff on TV, on Netflix. It's hard to find sometimes.
Yeah, I know that the movie Polar came out today. You were telling me about that. I checked out the trailer for that this morning.
I am looking forward to that movie. I've watched only about 20 minutes of it so far, so I can't really say too much just yet. It's fun. To me, it's just going to be a shoot 'em up kind of movie. If you like gore and you want a crazy storyline, that's pretty much what you're going to get. But it is a graphic novel, so I mean, for people who are fans of the comic, it's kind of cool to see it come to life. But for anybody else like me who haven't read that specific comic, it's just going to be something fun to watch and just see people die and get shot up, and it's just one of those kind of action flicks.
Looking at the trailer this morning, it was kind of reminiscent of John Wick, but it's going to be interesting to see what Mads Mikkelsen does. The biggest thing that I know him from, off the top of my head, is playing Kaecilius in Doctor Strange. I think he was also in something else recently.
Looking at that cast, I mean, there's not a lot of people. I mean, I think the most common name is Vanessa Hudgens out of it, which she's kind of doing everything for Netflix from Christmas movies to now this. But this movie reminded me more of Smoking Aces from, I think it was
That was a good one.
2006. It reminds me of that style or that feel of a movie, because that was essentially kind of like a Hitman movie as well too, but it's kind of that shoot 'em up movie kind of movie.
I'll always take a shoot 'em up movie. Did you see the clip with Jeff Bridges strolling around Twitter?
I did, and with the date of, I believe, the Super Bowl, but him just being the dude.
Yeah, I think in the tweet that I saw, it was straight from him, and he said, "You can't live in the past, man. Stay tuned." And I mean, looking at all the comments, Twitter kind of blew up. I was pretty excited.
Everybody's gonna want a sequel to The Big Lebowski. It's not gonna happen. Most likely, it's just an ad, but it's still gonna be cool. I mean, when an iconic character, at least like a cult favorite like that, gets to kind of come back on the big screen, especially or on the small screen, instead of big scale like a Super Bowl ad, it's just fun. I think that's probably gonna be one of the Super Bowl commercials that everybody's gonna talk about. But it's gonna be fun to see.
It'll probably end up being a Tide ad.
I can't with you sometimes.
Day one of Sundance was Thursday.
Yes, it just started up in Park City.
Yeah, up in Utah, and it sounds like they had quite the crazy time this weekend. We'll kind of get a full account later on, but I'm excited to see how everything kind of turned out there. I know that there was the Michael Jackson documentary, Leaving Neverland. There were a bunch of others too, so it'll be interesting to see where they go.
Well, with The Rock, that's where they're actually world premiering Fighting with My Family, the Page movie, the one I brought to you on what to be excited for 2019. That's actually world premiering. I don't know when specifically, but I know that's going to premiere at Sundance. And the biggest thing that I saw, because you and I are both fans of him, also the big news today is Saban Films picks up the rights to Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, so we're gonna have a distributor for the movie. You and I being Kevin Smith fans, this is exciting. I mean, because you got Yoga Hosers and you got Tusk, but it's gonna be cool to see now a 28 version take on especially one of his big properties in Jay and Silent Bob, just especially with the weight loss and everything too from the heart attack.
Especially because we all know Kevin Smith now is the guy who is always talking. It's going to be funny to see him step back into that role of just using his face as his lines. I mean, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is fun enough. To get a reboot is also fun to see. I'm excited. And especially Saban Films picking it up. I mean, Power Rangers, Shot Caller with the guy who plays Jamie Lannister was pretty good as well. They've got some good stuff under the belt.
That movie, The Vanishing, looks really good with Gerard Butler. It's about him being at the lighthouse, and
yeah,
I think the treasure, a body and treasure shows up, and people are coming to look for it. It looks really interesting, and not something that I would normally be interested in. But I watched the trailer the other day, and I won't lie, I was kind of hooked on it.
A lot of the film festivals bring us the really good stories that are just very underfunded for the most part. I mean, last year I remember watching a bunch of Sundance movies later on, and I enjoyed them a lot more than some of the others that I was seeing in theaters or on Netflix.
And the thing that I like too is this is kind of a slow time for movies in the theaters. Obviously, we're going to get to talking to some about what's out in theaters right now, and it's kind of a nice thing to get some of these stories and some of these movies that you weren't normally going to hear about. I guess The Rock being there is kind of a big deal because that is usually a huge star that you not normally would see there, especially with being an action star. It's not something that you would traditionally see, so it's going to be kind of interesting to see how everything plays out there, but at least that's going to give us something to talk about for the next 2 weeks. In the meantime, while really right now there's not a whole lot in theaters. We had you put your Glass episode or your Glass review up, so that's out right now for everybody to listen to. So once you're done listening to this, you can go listen to his Glass review. So if you're interested in seeing the movie, he's got that review out there for you as well too.
Let's get down to what we came here for, the Oscar nominations.
Yes, sir. And I only picked the top 7 categories. I mean, there's so many that we could go throughout, but there's a lot that we don't know about. Short film, documentary, but there's a lot of VFX, which I know you want to talk about, but there's so many different categories. We would be here for hours if we tried to pick all of them apart. So I just picked the top 7. So that's what we're going to go over. Kind of get people a little bit of a teaser for what's coming on, because we've got about a month out from the Oscars. So just a little bit of a little bit taste now. We're going to talk more about the films that are in it specifically as it gets a little bit closer. Getting started off, we're going to look at, I'm just going in order of how I wrote them down. We're going to get to obviously Best Picture at the very, very end. But for these ones, we're going to start off with a performance by an actor in a leading role. Now, for me on this, it's so stacked. and I really
Yes.
couldn't tell you where everything, who's going to win. With his record, I would say Christian Bale has a really good shot in Vice. I think his transformation that he had there is insane. You know what I mean? It's another one of those films where he's so brilliant, but he really puts himself into that character.
And he actually even came out within the last couple days and said that he's done changing his body weight for roles to focus on his personal health. So it's to go out on a movie like this as far as overall body change. It'll be nice to see him kind of switch it up, but stay in the same physical form.
But it's such a stacked list that we have. Bradley Cooper with A Star Is Born. You and I both watched it. You were going to talk about it more soon, or we're going to release that soon. I love the movie. I loved him in it. I mean, he wore a lot of hats in that. I'm glad he got a bit of an acting nod for it as well, too. We'll get to where I think he was snubbed later, but for this, I think he was a great leading actor in this movie. It took a lot of emotion. I mean, this is one of the few that I've had a chance to see right now, so it's the one I know more about. But William Dafoe is at Attorney's Gate. I don't know anything about this movie. Like a lot of these,
Neither
we're just
do
going to
I.
have to get more familiar with it. Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody just hit out on streaming this week. I want to be able to pick that up and watch it. So that's one I've been dying to see, but I didn't get a chance to see it in theaters.
Yeah, and then we have Viggo Mortensen for Green Book, co-starring with Mahershala Ali.
Who is also in our True Detective series. He's also in
Yes,
the True
he
Detective
is.
right now. So you get to catch up on him after you will listen to a solo episode. We'll recap next week, episode 4. But getting back to it, yes, Green Book. It looks really good. I think it's a movie that not many people would want to see, but looking at that trailer, what it goes over and the way it does it, I'm very excited. I know it hits streaming soon, but I'm just not exactly sure when. But that's what I'm looking forward to seeing before the Oscars.
Funny enough, Mahershala Ali for Green Book is in the nominations for performance by an actor in a supporting role. So you get both of those lead characters essentially getting a nomination. It's nice to see. Obviously, Moonlight was very big for Mahershala Ali. That's kind of his breakout role. So it's nice to see him still getting recognition.
This is the way I feel with the actor in a supporting role as I say with the leading actor. It is such a stacked category. Not only Mahershala Ali, but you're talking Adam Driver for BlacKkKlansman, Sam Elliott for A Star Is Born, which to me, he was probably one of the best parts of that movie. I mean, further we'll get into it more, but Richard E. Grant for Can You Forgive Me, and then also Sam Rockwell for Vice.
With Sam Elliott's character in A Star Is Born, he wasn't in there all that often, but when he was there, it was on purpose, and he pretty much filled the scene. It was really nice to see him. Adam Driver in BlacKkKlansman plays a Jewish man who's trying to get into the KKK, and you can kind of see that inner struggle with him, especially toward the beginning when they're trying to set all this up. And I'm glad he got a good nod. Richard E. Grant, I haven't seen Can You Forgive Me, but I'm excited to watch Sam Rockwell in Vice. Sam Rockwell is a great actor, and I like seeing him in the different crazy roles he takes.
I thought this was kind of one of the areas where we had the first big snub, and I guess you can kind of take it or leave it. But we're talking about Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther, which Black Panther got recognized quite a bit throughout the entire Oscars. They're kind of sprinkled throughout, which is nice to see. But at the same time, too, I thought Michael B. Jordan was a really strong part of a character and part of that movie. It's a bit of a bummer to not see him nominated, but at the same time, I'm not quite surprised when you're looking at the other list and kind of the movies that were represented. It kind of seemed like there just wasn't that extra slot for him to be nominated for.
I think Michael B. Jordan was one of the very first MCU villains that was wholeheartedly created. His character was very well written, was very well performed, and Michael B. Jordan really brought his character to life.
Next up, we have performance by an actress in a leading role. Now this, for us, I mean, the only one I'm familiar with is Lady Gaga with A Star Is Born. Yalitza Aparicio for Roma. I know it's on Netflix. I've seen it be quite advertised regularly. That's one I'm looking forward to seeing. But for the time being, you have Glenn Close and The Wife, which I know, obviously we all know who Glenn Close is, but I don't know a lot about the movie. This is something where over the next month, you and I are going to get a lot more familiar with these movies because we want to see what's it all about and why they're being nominated.
Oh, and then you have Olivia Colman from The Favorite, who was also nominated. And I know her from Broadchurch. She's been in quite a number of things recently, so it's nice to see her kind of hit that nomination scale. And then, of course, Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born. We kind of got a taste of that in during the Golden Globes. It's nice to see that she is still making a name for herself.
I thought she was brilliant in A Star Is Born. I mean, especially
Yes.
considering being a lot more of a singer, even though she kind of has that bit of a theater type performance, you can tell she can act. You know what I mean? Even if you take her off the stage and put her in front of a movie. I mean, obviously, I know she was in American Horror Story, but this was this was the first big thing that she had done. I mean, this is major for her to be nominated for an Oscar.
The other thing too, I think that was really on her side was this was the first role that at least I know her from, to that she wasn't an overly dramatic characterization. In American Horror Story, she played the vampire queen, but in this she just played kind of a small town girl that strikes lucky.
To me, the biggest surprise was Melissa McCarthy for Can You Forgive Me? And this is not something where you would traditionally see her be nominated for, considering she was also nominated for a Razzie for that puppet movie that she did earlier or mid last year.
Happy Time Murders.
Yes, that was nominated for a Razzie, and she was nominated for an Oscar and a Razzie at the same time, which I thought was quite funny. I believe she's one of the funniest people on the earth. I mean, she's quite great at improv. So to see her being nominated for a supporting actress role, it makes me really want to see that movie.
Especially in like a more serious note too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
Next up, we have Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role. Amy Adams kind of starts off the list for Vice. I think that she should have won something for Sharp Objects. She really killed it, and I was sad that she didn't get some recognition there, but I'm glad to see her name pop up on this.
She's one of these women that when you see her name, you know she's in something good. You know, she's kind of built that resume over the last couple of years that when you see her in something, especially around this time of year, it's most likely going to be nominated for some kind of Academy Award. It's kind of nice because she can also have those big kind of commercial movies as well as having these really, dark, deep, gritty dramas that she's also great in. So it's nice to see her be recognized. The next big movie for me in this category is The Favorite, because you have two actresses in this category. You have Emma Stone and you have Rachel Weisz, which you don't normally see quite. You see it every once in a while to have two actresses from the same movie be nominated. So it just, to me, makes this category probably one of the toughest to judge because I believe a lot of these ladies are so close together.
And then you have Regina King for If Beale Street Could Talk. And although I haven't seen it yet, I'm excited to watch it. And Regina King also had a Golden Globe nomination for her work in 7 Seconds on Netflix. And if that is any indication as to what to look forward to in Beale Street, then I'm all in.
And then lastly, Marina de Tavira. This is another one where this is for Roma. I need to see the movie. It's, I don't know about any of these foreign actors. That's why I'm looking forward to seeing it, because it's going to give me a bit of an education on a little bit of foreign film. Well, obviously we'll get who directed a little bit later on. But for me, this is such a stacked category. Every movie here is probably going to be one of the heavy hitters, because right now there's no pretty much clear-cut favorite for best film. So any of these ladies in any of these movies are going to have a good shot to not only take home this, but also best picture.
Now the next area of nominations is probably one of my favorites, but is also probably one that's going to be easily beaten out by The Obvious Choice.
It usually is every year. Mainly every year, if it's a Disney movie, it's going to win an Oscar, or a Pixar movie. And this year isn't the case. I mean, to me, The Favorite is not a Disney movie, and it's kind of exciting to see competition from someone else, especially in a different format, being more of a cartoon animation than just a regular 3D animation movie.
I mean, Disney has 2 movies on the list with Incredibles 2 and Ralph Breaks the Internet, and then Wes Anderson has Isle of Dogs, which my roommate says was really good. There's Mirai, which I'm not too familiar with.
No, I don't know too much about it. And then I'll let you say the big one, because it was one of your favorite movies of 2018.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I wonder who's going to win this one.
I think it's going to be Spider-Man, but that's also just hoping that it's going to be Spider-Man. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. Everything about it was fantastic. Ralph Breaks the Internet and Incredibles 2 were really good, but overall quality of art that I watched was all superior in Spider-Man.
And that's exactly what you said. With Incredibles 2, I walked away going, this was a great movie. I enjoyed it just as much as the first one, but it didn't bring anything new. It just kind of continued the story, but I liked the feeling of being able to see something that I watched as a kid. With Ralph Breaks the Internet, the same kind of thing where I thought it was a good movie, but at the same time, too, Spider-Man left the impression that, Ralph Breaks the Internet and Incredibles 2, which are pretty much are the two biggest other names in that category, they didn't walk away going, wow, this was a game changer. With Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, it completely changed what was possible, especially with a superhero movie, because a lot of those you don't see mainstream released in the theaters. A lot of those are straight to DVD, or straight to streaming, whether it be Marvel or DC. So to them to take obviously a big character like Spider-Man and really create something out of it and be able to make more movies in a trilogy or take it any direction they want to is, to me, more impactful, and that's the reason why it's going to win. I don't even think it's a contest. I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse wins it in a landslide.
Next category is achievement in direction. Now, I'm going to let you take this one over because I know that you've got some qualms with it.
I don't have a problem with who was nominated. It's who was not nominated. And you and I have had this discussion quite a few times already. To me, Bradley Cooper should be nominated for Best Director. Whether he wins or not, when you have a movie nominated for Best Picture, and you have a lot of these accolades, like your actors, he's nominated for Best Actor in a leading role. Lady Gaga is nominated for Best Actress in a leading role. To me, when you have a lot of those components, which means you had great actors, you had a great crew, you had everything that worked right for that film, why are you not nominated? It's the only thing. And then people are going to go say, we got nominated for a lot of other things. I understand he got nominated for other things, but to me, he also deserved this nod as well, too. I mean, you can talk about the list and who you would take up or, take down. With the buzz about A Star is Born, I think he should be in there. You have Spike Lee from BlacKkKlansman, who also should be there, because those are some movies that have definitely been predominantly known as going to be up for Best Picture. Adam McKay in Vice is another movie that's really come forward in the last little bit and has become not necessarily a frontrunner, but also in the talking and the running for. Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. You'll know him from Roma, but you also know him. He made a movie a couple years ago, a space movie called Gravity. All of those are great nominees. Paul Pawlowski from Cold War. I don't know anything about the movie. It's one of those that I think could have been taken down to put Bradley Cooper in. To me, there wasn't a ton of snubs for the Oscars, but to me, this was one of the big ones, or at least the biggest one that I could see.
Also, kind of with Black Panther, I think Ryan Coogler could have gotten a mention as well. I'd be interested to sit in a room and see how they decide these nominations, how they end up deciding the winners. I'm one of those people that love to see how things work, and this is something that I think would be very beneficial to everybody who watches to see how they do it.
Well, and to me, for instance, like the movie Cold War, you and I may not know anything about it, and that's just the ignorance of us not knowing fully everything about movies. But when it comes down to what people have seen and what's been more impactful, like essentially, even if you didn't put Bradley Cooper in there, but put Ryan Coogler, he's another one who not only his style, his body of work has spoke for him, but also what he continues to do, especially with Black Panther and how big that transformed media and movies. We've talked about whether we like these movies being nominated for Best Picture and things like that. In certain circumstances, like the cultural impact that Black Panther did, I think it was bigger than a superhero movie. Which to me, and with all being said and done, I think that beats out something like Cold War or even like The Favorite. I think BlacKkKlansman speaks volumes on a different level to race, and I think it was done very, very smart. And I believe Spike Lee deserves that. Just like Adam McKay in Vice, I thought was a very funny movie in parts, and I liked how they portrayed that character in a different way that you weren't suspecting it. To me, I think this is the one where they try to diverse too much, and I think it ends up hurting the category.
Speaking of categories, our final one is the Best Picture nominees. In the past, a lot of the nominations and Oscar winners have been movies that were just out of my wheelhouse, and I'm actually excited for this whole list. I'm excited to go through and watch them all so that I understand why they were chosen.
This is the first year where you can't tell who's going to win. I mean, I believe before the Golden Globes happened, people thought, okay, The Star is Born is going to walk everybody because it was just such a big, it had gotten such a big review. It had a lot of buzz behind it. And then you get to movies like Black Panther, who is such a huge commercial success. You know what I mean? I believe it crossed $1 billion easily, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, very easily.
Yeah. And it was a big success. But at the same time, too, what holds it back is the fact that it's not more of an art house film. It's more of an action film. It's a Marvel Universe film. This is something that we haven't seen. Now, as much as I like it, I don't think it wins just because I think it's more you got nominated. It's the baby steps that we're going to get to eventually having a superhero movie win an Oscar. I think we're still a long way away. I'm not for it, but I think it's nice to see Black Panther nominated.
Kevin Feige said that it's an immense pleasure to even see it on there. Even if we just get nominations for now, and then the style and overall filmmaking gets better, it's nice to see that there is somebody out there that appreciates this as a film, because it is a good film.
Oh, yeah.
And just like Black Klansman, it speaks toward race. Now, Black Klansman was a lot more in tune with it. It was obviously historically accurate and very hard hitting on the race issue of the times. But I'm excited to see that it's on this list.
Oh yeah, I think definitely with Spike Lee and the cast that he has, not only the cast, but just how he puts this movie together. I mean, anywhere from just seeing the first trailer to actually seeing the movie itself, you can tell that it's going to be a very gripping and emotionally, or it's very racially charged. That's what Spike Lee does. It's not necessarily going to be controversial, but he's going to inform you. He's going to educate you, but he's going to get his point across, which I really like. Now, with like Bohemian Rhapsody, this was kind of one of these movies that critics either loved or hated. And this is a movie that had a lot of problems. You had two different actors tied to playing Freddie Mercury, and to kind of see it go full circle to be nominated for Best Picture, I'm glad to see. But I know it's kind of loved and hated, so it's one of those where who really voted for this? Are these the people that really loved the movie, or did they not? Because at the Golden Globes, they really seemed to love this movie. But now you're at the Oscars, so I'm interested to see the kind of how that plays out. I think Rami Malek, I'm dying to see this movie. He looks fantastic in the movie. I'm excited to see in that as a character who's bigger than life, who he really was at that time. I think it's really, for me, I'm a fan of Queen, and I'm a fan of what that band did, and I still continue to listen to them. So it's kind of cool to see that on the big screen, because you don't always get those as much. The favorite, I think, can kind of, between you and I, are both the movie where we're both dreading watching the least. We don't mind period piece movies, but this just doesn't seem like our style. I mean, we're not going to lie. You and I are casual movie. You and I are casual movie watchers. We're here to give our view on things. It's not, we're no professionals. So there's movies that we're going to like. Critic. No, we are not critics. We just like what we like. And for us, this is just another movie that really struck us. I mean, even though it does have someone like Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz in it that would draw us in, to me, the story's just not there. I'm sure it's a great movie. I will still try and watch it, but with as many movies there is to watch, it's going to be hard to really dive in as much as I want to.
And that's kind of how I feel about Roma as well. I'm going to kind of leave that one up to you to watch, and you can tell me how it is, because it's not in my wheelhouse. I would love to love it, but I know that I'm not.
Oh, I know. I think for you and I think the Green Book's kind of the middle ground. I know you don't want to see Roma. I don't want to see The Favorite, but I think the Green Book's kind of one of those ones where we'll both watch and actually have a good watch. To me, it looks really interesting. I've seen it been promoted. I've seen the trailer before, but even before it really came out, became a big thing that was going to be an Oscar contender. To me, I think that's one of the ones that I'm really excited to sit down with you and actually go into depth on it. We've already seen A Star Is Born. We'll go more in depth with it as well too. I really liked it. I know you really liked it. It's an emotionally heavy movie. It's one of those you want to feel. If it's a movie, then you want to feel some emotion. It's that, because it's so emotionally heavy, especially with Sam Elliott, like you talked about. Him getting the Best Supporting Actor nod. He's only in that movie a couple scenes, but those scenes are so emotionally charged and heavy hitting. Like, those are the ones that really are the biggest emotional swings in that movie.
And then to round out the list, you have Vice, which again we've kind of talked back and forth on. It's a big list. It's a heavy list. I'm excited to watch as many of them as I can.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is a year where there's no clear-cut favorite. There isn't. There's not one. If I had to take a guess, I still would say A Star Is Born, just because of, really, I think it's partially because of Bradley Cooper and all the hats that he wore trying to make this movie, being directing, producing, writing, starring, everything in it. Black Panther, I think, is another interesting one. It just depends on if it has enough to overtake everybody. I just think it was so early in the year that it kind of gets washed out, because it follows a story. It's not an individual just an idea. It's not just a one-off movie, because that flows in with Avengers, and this is going to flow in with everything else that's coming out. So to me, it's one of those where it's a good story, but I think it gets lost in the shuffle with what the bigger picture of Marvel's doing.
It's going to be a heartbreaking moment for a lot of people, whoever wins or doesn't win, and thus is the life of award season. It'll be interesting to go through them. I know that we're planning to do a special on all of the Best Picture nominees. Basically, Travis and I are going to go through each of the movies, and he's going to end up watching Roma. I'm going to watch The Favorite. We're hopefully going to watch the rest of them all as well, and that way we can give a more educated guess as to who we think will be winning.
Yeah, we're trying to work out all the logistics right now, but we really like doing the special episodes. We really like doing the True Detective. That's why we want your feedback. If you guys have anything to say, drop us a line on Twitter or on Facebook. I mean, that's where we try to keep up with as much stuff as we can, and we love hearing from anybody. So please, WTAE podcast. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. That way we can talk about it all together, because we're trying to plan it's going to be a big episode, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
With that being said, thanks for tuning in. As always, I'm B. Frank.
And I'm Travis.
And we are Worth the Admission.
Take care.
See you next week. And ending.